Welcome to a quick overview of my third in a series of 3 demos on FrameMaker 2015 digital publishing. This overview of creating apps builds on the previous lesson, where we mapped content to CSS elements and modified the look and feel of the output. You can see the accompanying blog posts for more information and for more detail. Starting off, I've opened up my sample FrameMaker content and open up the Publish pod. I'm working with the saved settings from my previous lesson and again setting my scope to a small portion of that content for testing purposes. To set the remaining options for processing, go back to Change Settings and select the Edit option. In the Output section, select the Mobile app and the General tab. Note that the layout name is similar but not exactly the same as the layout name for the HTML5 output. You'll want to go through this layout to perform any customizations needed to match branding or look and feel. When you're ready, switch to the application details. I've already filled out the items here, but it's worth hearing the descriptions before you set your own values. Package name. The App Store default for this might take some getting used to, but it's a reversed web address followed by your app name. The version is for your iOS app and submission to the Apple iOS App Store. Version code is similar. It's the Android equivalent for the App Store, but it's best to treat this as a build number as it requires whole numbers and they don't need to be consecutive. I generally increment by 1 for each build just to be safe. The title is the label displayed on your mobile device, on the PhoneGap service, used to process the app itself, and the file name downloaded to your device. The description is used on the PhoneGap service and it also accompanies the file when doing a manual download. The icon displays above the title on your device, and the splash screen is the image that displays on startup. If you're worried about displaying on multiple resolutions, look into creating a 9.png file for the image to allow for resizing. PhoneGap credentials. You can sign up for Adobe PhoneGap for free, and PhoneGap is the service that allows you to process your content into a mobile app. The free Adobe PhoneGap account allows you to produce and maintain a single mobile app, both iOS and Android versions of that app. You can also subscribe to various Adobe software packages, including Adobe CC, that include a subscription to the PhoneGap service, or you can maintain an independent subscription to PhoneGap itself. Once you've created your PhoneGap account, put in your credentials and validate your user ID. This dialog will let you know when you've done that correctly. Platform is where you'll put in your credentials for submitting your app to the Apple and Google App Stores, but for now we're going to leave the iOS credentials alone, and we'll leave the Android credentials blank. This allows us to test the Android app on Android devices without going through the hoops and the costs associated with any developer programs. And so now it's time to process the file. I'll jump to the end since processing requires uploading to PhoneGap and processing on their servers. When you're done processing, if it completes successfully, you should see this View Output option. Choosing View Output brings up not the application, but the download page with details on transferring the application to your device. Here we have a QR code for scanning with the Android device, a download button for manually downloading the file and then transferring it to your device, or a tedious web address that you can type in on your Android device in a browser. Since we use PhoneGap to process the application, we can also view our account on PhoneGap and see the app as it's been processed on that service. You can see that the application has the same thing. It has both a QR code and an install, and there's a web address if you feel like digging into it deep enough.